All right, hey everybody. Today is going well. We are live on this segment of Cloudy with the Chance of Learning.
Right, Cinco de Mayo, Taco Tuesday, and Tropics Tuesday too.
Yeah, I talk more about the structure of tropical systems and also what steers these, as well as kind of talk a little bit more about what we were talking about the last few, like what are those names of the storms this year? What's the forecast? Sorts of different things. We're getting closer and closer to hurricane season. We're less than
That's the first official day.
Yeah, and for some of the adults that may be watching at home, there's something important you should know about insurance. So kids, we're getting into the fun in a moment, but for insurance, it's important to know that you cannot buy flood insurance. First of all, it takes 30 days for it to go into place in the first place. So that's why it's important to start prepping for hurricane season. Make sure you have that flood insurance if you live in a flood-prone area. And also, some states in some areas don't allow you to buy insurance plans if there's a hurricane, or rather certain types of insurance plans, if there's a hurricane in the
Well, there you go. And you know how we're doing on this lovely Tuesday. Hey, I'm in a good mood because it is going later today. We have temperatures falling into the 70s, which is my kind of weather. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, and my sister and my nephew Logan both say, "Oh, hello. I hope you're doing great. I saw your little slide that your mom did. Your mom for you look like out there, and I hope all of you at home are finding a way to stay cool. Playing out in the sprinkler would be a good day for it. It was just a good day for it. Yeah, for sure. It was all the way up in the 90s to triple digit, very high.
We have Brenda saying good afternoon, Ken's 5 weather. Hey, Brenda, good afternoon to you. We have Logan saying hi, of course. Your teamwork. Thank you so much. Hope you're enjoying your Tuesday. Income for today. Yes, we do have some brief showers. We're actually watching a cold front currently in Austin and also over the hill. You were about on midday temperatures falling over Fredericksburg.
Yeah, temperatures fell within an hour in Fredericksburg just because of how strong this cold front is. And I say strong. It's going to give us more than anything else. But, today we'll be talking all weeks, and how about we jump into it? Now, some of this is a little bit of a recap from weeks ago.
To review, though.
Yep, we're going to review, and then you're going to see stuff. Where do these tropical systems form? They start off as waves that form to Africa, then make across the Atlantic. And it seems like my graphic has frozen here. Guys, give me 1 second. Let me see if I can get it to actually advance for me.
Let me try doing something. We're working from home, so these happen. There
it looks like something just moved.
Yeah, we have a little bit of lag here at home. We're trying to communicate with the computers at our news station, and we're at home right now, so a bit of lag. So let's go ahead and start from the top. So you were just talking about tropical wave formation off of Africa, right?
Yeah.
So our audio's
our audio is cutting out too. Sorry guys, let me make off the internet here on my phone at least, and maybe we can fix the internet issues just a little bit. So okay, we're gonna jump back into this and talk more about it. So tropical wave in Africa. The waves will then move over into the Atlantic Ocean. That could cause us to see thunderstorms. And guys, it's on me again. I'm gonna resystem here to see if that helps.
Okay.
So thunderstorms develop over water, and then they continue their walk towards the west, from east to west. Kind of different from what we see over the United States, where we typically have weather systems go west to east. Give me 1 second, guys. Restart.
So technical difficulties, but this is all review. So we've already done talked about all of the formations. You haven't remembered this recap, comment below, and see if you guys remember exactly how tropical systems form. Of course, we've been talking about tropical waves forming in Africa. They move west over the ocean, and you can get this thunderstorm activity to develop over water, right?
Yeah, and as they continue to west, we may see these systems be even longer. We could more in the winds with that, and they form into a tropical. We'll get more organized, let's say, and then we'll see once the storm has 39-mile-per-hour winds, it will become a tropical storm.
So that's remember 39-mile-an-hour winds.
That's
maximum winds. It
right.
becomes a storm. Okay.
Right, and I think we've got the internet issue figured out now, guys. And once it's 7-mile-per-hour winds or stronger, it becomes classified as a hurricane.
Mm-hmm.
And here's some areas of the storm that we want to talk about. We have, of course, the eye is where we have the quieter weather. That's that spot in the middle where it's really quiet. The eye is strongest winds typically. That's typically the strongest of the winds in the storm is within the eye. But right there in the center, it's actually quiet. Sometimes sky, sometimes storm. So insects.
Yeah, and the important thing with the eye and the eye wall, also the rain bands, this has to do with wind inside that storm, correct?
Mm-hmm. It does. It depends on how strong that storm is. Sometimes hurricanes don't have very pronounced eyes, and it could mean because the storm is disorganized from shear, which we're going to talk about more in a moment, or it could be that the storm just isn't yet. It takes a strong storm for one of these eyes to form. And then stretching out way over the storm, we can have rain bands. Sometimes those rain bands can include strong storms and can include waterspouts and tornadoes.
Yeah, so brief tornadoes too.
Yeah, typically with a hurricane, brief spin-up tornadoes. They're not usually the long-lived, long tornadoes like what we may talk about in the springtime with some of our strong to severe storms. But there's still possibly to be strong tornadoes within hurricanes as well.
Mm-hmm.
So a little bit more about shear and hurricanes. We've talked last about just what wind shear does to storm, and wind shear, and then there's also speed shear. Now, what we're talking about here is speed shear. Directional is more rotation. Is when you have slow wind speeds down low, and then they get faster as you get higher. Just think about it like that.
So think about a hurricane, right? And the clouds that you're seeing kind of fan away from the center. Think of a hurricane in half, and you're looking at the inside view. Hurricane, and it's kind of fanning out on both sides, but you also have the middle. Center.
Yeah, the very, very center. That's up along the eye wall where the winds are all coming in and going up. And I'm going to try to draw, guys, but I can't guarantee that it's for me. Internet is just have a little bit here, so go for us.
Seems as though the audio is working. We're just cutting out a lot, which I can see a lot here.
Let me check one thing to make sure we can get this well as for you. Well, hopefully it doesn't cut out as much. So we have winds, hurricane going towards the center. Remember, everything's the center, and then once it all comes up, so it goes up the wall, and then once it gets goes all to the top, it may encounter basically touching of the atmosphere like a cap. That will cause the air to go out. It's called fluid, where you see all the arrows, those red arrows from the center, and then they end up something down that number means less cloud. And I think are we still on?
So if you can hear us, what we're going to do is actually restart this Facebook Live. I think we'll just restart it since cutting out.
Well,
it's going to be hard to hear the line a little bit.
Yeah, the problem is I don't know if we're going to have it work in a second. Is your audio still on?
Yeah, It is.
Wasn't. Guys, just a technical difficulty here. We apologize.
So we'll just pull up the weather update full here.
Yeah, we'll actually pull up the graphic. Weather classroom. So guys, we're actually going to actually see this results over time.
Okay.
I think things are starting to move a little bit more. Technical difficulties, it happens with working from home. Could you turn that back up real quick? I just want to hear this. Well, guys, we're just gonna hope that this will resolve itself. And we'll just go through this, and if it doesn't work, we'll maybe repost it later to see if we can get it to work later.
And you're going to be posting a web article online too.
Right, there's going to be a web article online. So it's important to know that all of the wind is going into the center of the hurricane, and then it goes up the eye walls. But in the very center, in the eye, there's actually sinking air. And that's because the air has nowhere else to go. Once it rises up to the top of the storm, it will go out. That's where you see what the red arrows are doing. And then it will also go down into the center. If that storm is really strong, that's what what makes that eye kind of appear. So when we have shear, that of course is if a storm is really healthy and straight up and down, spinning like a top. If we have shear, then it could cause the storm to lean over a bit. And if the storm is leaning over, then that will disrupt the wind flow, and that will actually cause the storm to become unhealthy and could cause the storm to fall apart. I
think we're doing well in our video, so let's cross our fingers that it continues to work.
Let's hope that it continues to work. Sorry about those technical difficulties, guys. It's a part of working from home. Sometimes the internet will cut out on you, and if it cuts out on us, rather, it will give issues to everybody at home. So we're doing our best here to kind of keep everything working proper.
So now that we have the video working a lot better, you were just talking about shear. So the higher the wind shear, tropical systems really don't like that because it can kind of tear them apart, right?
Right.
It can make them slant and lean a little bit.
Right. You don't want if you wanted a hurricane to be healthy, you don't want it to lean. You want it to be standing up straight, much like what we have here in this photo. Again, the wind going around in the center of a hurricane. We're looking at a hurricane from the side view here. The eye wall, that's where the air is going up and then out at the top. So it's coming up, in, and then out. And then in the very center, you have that sinking air in the middle. That is why there's an eye. That's why you can see straight through the eye of a hurricane.
So we talked about sinking air with Weather Chief Bill Taylor one day, and we talked about sinking air with high pressure. Can you tie that in just a little bit as to why it's clearer in the eye of a hurricane and or, tropical system?
Yeah, so high pressure, remember, weather, blue skies. Low pressure is lousy, in other words, stormy. So a hurricane is a low pressure system, but it has low pressure with air at the surface, with air rushing in, trying to come in and fill all this space, and then it goes up the eye wall. Well, after it all goes up, if you have at the center of a hurricane, you have so much air going up and up and up, it then has nowhere to go, so it goes out, and then only so much air can go out, so some will go to that very center, and it will sink in the very center. And that is why you have high pressure in the middle.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, all that air, it has nowhere else to go, so it has to go down. And that's how you can tell you have a strong hurricane, if it has a healthy eye.
So let's fast forward to the wind shear. We just looked at the normal hurricane, but if we had, strong wind shear, higher winds high into our atmosphere, high into our sky, that's going to make the hurricane or the tropical system lean a little bit. So it's going to kind of rip it apart.
Yeah, it makes it really a really unhealthy storm. Now, shear can be helpful for some strong to severe storms if we're talking about springtime storms to a point. Too much shear can rip storms apart, and that's what the issue is with hurricanes. Too much shear rips them apart.
And sometimes what we've been seeing, especially over, for example, Mexico, I know that Maverick County and let's say Eagle Pass and Cotulla, you guys have been seeing some cloud tops from storms that formed well west of you over Mexico. And it's because of the wind shear, the higher winds high into our sky, just bringing that cloud cover over, you know, Maverick County, Eagle Pass, for example. And so that's kind of what wind shear is like on a daily basis here in South Texas and Mexico as well.
Yeah, and you know, with those stronger winds higher up, that's what steers these systems. And then also things like high pressure systems. So if we had an area of high pressure, well, let's say we had an area of low pressure, a hurricane or a tropical system that is just south of the northern Gulf of Mexico, like Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama. An area of high pressure that is just off to the west could steer it to make it go down and then in. You know, one of the more historic hurricanes to hit Texas was Hurricane Harvey, and it kind of got stalled out. There was nothing to steer it. And when these tropical systems have a lack of steering, it can cause them to just kind of be stuck.
Like Harvey, it was sandwiched in between two areas of high pressure. So that's why it did a little loop-de-loop over the Texas coastline. Like you said, it just couldn't go anywhere because of the steering currents, the weather pattern we had in place. So we had Hurricane Harvey right in between two areas of high pressure.
Yeah, and that was one of the reasons why it ended up being such a bad system with so much rainfall and just kind of stalling out. So high pressure could help steer these systems. And also the jet stream. If we have a dip in the jet stream, it can actually almost, you could say, catch the areas of low pressure and drag them off to the north with it. So if we had a little bit of a short wave or a little bit of a dip like that, it will actually tug at the system and pull it off towards the northeast. And then, of course, if we had high pressure off to the east, it would push the system. It could cause the system to go further on off towards the north and steer it in the proper direction.
So it all depends on the weather pattern.
So that's all things that we track from with satellites. We're tracking wind directions and wind speeds with height and wind direction with height, and we can all track that using all sorts of different weather models and different things like that to try to guess or find out where those storms could be going. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about the 2020 Atlantic hurricane forecast. This is from Colorado State University. Could have about 12 named storms as we head throughout the season, or excuse me, that's the average. Sorry, I had something go off on my computer there. I was trying to turn it down. The prediction is 16 named storms, so an above average season.
And also 8 hurricanes predicted. And on average, there's about 6 hurricanes. Now, one thing to note is it doesn't mean every single hurricane or named storm or even major hurricane will impact land. Some of them can stay out in open water and not impact anybody, which would be great, honestly.
Yeah,
it would be great.
Yeah, these systems are great for the planet because they distribute warmer air and send it to the poles, and that allows for the weather it keeps the planet more evenly with even temperatures rather. So they're good systems. It's just we'd rather them not hit land.
Right.
So if we could have them without them hitting land, that would be but unfortunately sometimes they do hit land, and that's what we got to look out for. It's better to be prepared.
I want to do a few shout outs here. We have Matthew, of course, joining us. Glad to hear Matthew. Emily is watching from first grade. Hey, Emily, glad that you're here. Dolores said, thank you for trying. Thanks, Dolores. You know, sometimes we've had, some difficulties with our Facebook lives and, newscasts in general. That's because we're trying to, connect to our computers at the station at KINS 5. So Addison 6.5 says, hey, Addison, glad that you're here again. I know that you're one of our viewers along with Shelby. Shelby's here. Eugene saying, thanks for the update. with a thumbs up. And I know we had a few issues with cutting out, but it seems like we're good to go now.
Yeah.
Let's see. Yeah, that's good. And then Jennifer says, I thought of this song, Bill Taylor, the weather guy.
So Matthew had a question.
Mm-hmm.
If all types of weather events like hurricane, blizzard, tsunami, and earthquake happened all at once, what would happen and could it happen? So the answer to that, Matthew, a hurricane and a blizzard couldn't necessarily happen at the same time. Now, you could have hurricane force winds. What happens is a hurricane is a system that it needs warm water. And the structure for a hurricane is different than a structure for a system that would bring a blizzard. Now, something that I guess would be the best comparison would be Superstorm Sandy. When it came, it was a hurricane, and then it lost its tropical characteristics. So it wasn't necessarily a hurricane anymore. And it actually, I think I remembered it had snow on the west side of the storm, and likely had really strong winds. But the thing is, it was no longer a tropical system. Some people still called it Hurricane Sandy, but it was no longer a tropical when it made landfall because it lost those tropical characteristics. So it could seem like it, but it won't necessarily be that, Matthew. And I guess you could have a tsunami and earthquakes at the same time.
Well, sometimes earthquakes can cause that, correct?
Right. Sometimes earthquakes cause tsunamis because if you have a rift in the plates underwater, if they collide together, it will actually kind of push up a wave way up high at the surface of the water, and then that will go out. Kind of like if you were in the bathtub, you took your hands and you clapped them together underwater, it would make a wave and then it would go out.
We also have Easton joining us from Gardendale. Hey, Easton, glad that you're here. Okay, so this is the 2020 Atlantic hurricane forecast. Of course, we have the National Hurricane Center releasing their prediction soon too, right?
Yeah, we will actually have them releasing their stuff. I think it's June 1st they release their forecast, and that's the National Hurricane Center in Florida. The National Hurricane Center director is Ken Graham. He is a really nice guy. We actually know him.
Yep.
He used to work at the National Weather Service in Slidell, Louisiana, which is the New Orleans area, basically. Yep. And he actually did a lot of great work on storm surge study after Katrina.
So let's see if your name is on this Atlantic hurricane season list. You know, it's recycled every 4 years, right? The list on, it's recycled every 4 years, but some names retire, like Katrina, Harvey, you know, all sorts of names have retired.
Yeah. Andrew.
And they would just replace it with a new one.
Yeah. And Arthur would be the first name this year. So we'll be on the lookout for Arthur, especially as the 2020 season gets going. Matthew. Is Matthew a retired hurricane name? I think they did retire Matthew. I'm not 100% sure, though. Matthew, I'll have to check. But I think they did retire Matthew. Seeing if we have anything else. Y'all, the best show. I'm learning a lot from y'all. Oh, well, thank you so much. We're glad that y'all are enjoying your time. Easton, I hope you are really enjoying this. Thank you so much.
Yeah, definitely.
I remember Harvey. Yeah, Harvey.
A lot of us do.
It was a bad storm.
Right.
And remember, hurricane season begins on June 1st, but that doesn't mean that's when we see a lot of the hurricanes. I mean, the season doesn't really ramp up until we get into August. Some of the worst hurricanes to ever hit the Texas coast actually occurred in the last 2 weeks of August, first 2 weeks of September. And that goes for a majority of the Gulf of Mexico. Some of the and really the whole Atlantic basin. That's when a majority of the storms hit. You see September 10th is the peak of the season. That goes in line with that first 2 weeks of September I just mentioned.
One thing I do want to point out is even though hurricane season officially begins on June 1st, it's not rare to see tropical systems form now in May. You can see that our graph actually starts this month and it just kind of goes up into a peak in mid-September,
Mhm.
and then, it slowly goes back down once we head into November. So it's not rare. We've already seen, this tropical disturbance form over the Pacific Ocean. That's going to be well west of California. So we've already seen some activity kind of blossom for, tropical season so far.
Yeah, it'll be something to look out for.
Mhm.
And I also want to mention something else that we haven't talked a lot about. Notice there's a second kind of peak there in October.
Mhm.
Sometimes we do have a second little peak, and that can happen as fronts start to move through, and if they stall out in the Gulf, we could have tropical systems form, and when the water is still warm, and that's why we have that second little peak there in October. I believe Hurricane Michael occurred in October, which hit the panhandle of Florida a few years ago,
Mhm.
and that's just one of those storms that it didn't fall in the peak, but you could still have big storms even later in the season.
And it's always important to know, let's say, for example, if evacuations are in place, it's not great to compare it to a different storm because each tropical system has its own narrative. Some impacts will be a lot different than the previous storm. The storm could be wider, it could be smaller, it could have higher wind gusts. It's important to pay attention to the specific impacts, not necessarily, the category strength. The category is, of course, to know because of maximum sustained wind speeds. And of course, wind is a major impact with tropical storms and hurricanes. So it's so important to know about the impacts, storm surge being one of them, wind gusts, severe weather, if there's a tornado watch or a severe thunderstorm watch. We just talked about the outer bands of a tropical system and how, brief spin-up tornadoes could form on the outer, bands of tropical systems. So that's something to, really, really understand and really remember.
Yeah, really important things to remember there, guys. And with all that being said, we're about to wrap it up here. Sorry for those technical difficulties. We're gonna have them every once in a while. Thankfully, we've been that was our pretty good stretch where we didn't have any, but we have had a little bit for today. So sorry about that. But again, you're doing Solar System Mondays, and that's a lot of fun. We did that. You're talking about Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn.
We did.
Tropical Tuesday was today, of course. Computer Models 101 is tomorrow. The weather models that we use to forecast is going to be a lot of fun. Thursday is all about tornadoes. And then Friday, of course, Fun Time Friday. Be sure to send us your stuff. Guys, sorry again about those little bit of technical difficulties, but we're about to sign off here.
Yeah, we hope you enjoy the rest of your Tuesday.
Yeah, have a great one and enjoy the cooler weather after that cold front passes through this afternoon.
See you later.